Only my real daughter deserves to be a mother first. Margaret's voice oozed satisfaction through the phone. I swapped your fertility meds for sugar pills weeks ago. Amanda needs this more than you. My fingers curled around the edge of my desk, the rage simmering beneath a veneer of calm. Thank you for confirming that, Margaret, I said evenly. Silence stretched across the line. She'd expected sobbing, begging, anything but this cold composure. My name is Olivia Chen. I'm 32 years old, and I just received verbal confirmation that my mother-in-law had deliberately sabotaged my IVF treatment. Also, her biological daughter could become a mother first. What Margaret didn't know was that I'd already discovered her treachery 3 weeks ago. What do you mean? She asked, her smugness beginning to fray. Nothing, I said smoothly. I have to go. Dr. Roberts is expecting me. I ended the call before she could speak again. Dr. Roberts wasn't just my fertility specialist. She was the one who'd helped me unravel everything. The inconsistencies in my medication, the strange shape of the tablets, the altered coding. I'm a pharmaceutical researcher. I don't miss details like that. When the first round of IVF failed despite textbook perfect conditions, something didn't sit right, so I installed a discreet camera in my home office, where I kept my medication. That footage showed Margaret using her spare key, one James insisted she keep for emergencies, to sneak in, replace my prescriptions, and smile as she worked. This is criminal, Dr. Roberts had said, jaw tight as she watched the footage. Tampering with fertility drugs isn't just cruel. It's a felony. Together, we laid a trap. I faked a second round of treatment, preserved every swapped-out pill, and documented each step. And now, with Margaret's confession on record, we had everything we needed. My phone buzzed. Amanda. Mom told me the good news. I'm pregnant. Guess you'll have to wait your turn. I stared at the screen, remembering the years of little sabotages. Accidental spills, snide comments masked as compliments, constant jabs about how a real woman would have given James children by now. And James, my husband of 5 years, had stayed willfully blind through it all. She's just traditional, he'd said. She means well. Even when I told him I suspected someone was tampering with my meds, he'd brushed it off. You're being paranoid. Mom would never. My office phone rang again. Margaret. I let it go to voicemail. A new email blinked onto my screen, my lawyer. Everything was ready. One word from me and the case would move forward. Footage, documentation, preserved evidence, and now Margaret's own voice confessing her crime. Another ping, Amanda again. Mom says you're ignoring her calls. Don't be jealous just because I'm going to be a mom first. I exhaled slowly, remembering Dr. Roberts' quiet reassurance just days ago. You're healthy, Olivia. Once we remove the interference, there's no reason this shouldn't work. What she did is unforgivable, but not irreversible. James texted next. Mom says you're acting cold about Amanda's news. Can't you just be happy for her? I rose, gathering my bag and the folder filled with evidence. Time for my meeting with Dr. Roberts, which was really a final review session with my lawyer. As I drove, I recalled the moment I first watched Margaret on the footage. Her expression victorious as she held up the fake pills, snapping a selfie like a trophy hunter. Amanda will be first, she whispered into the silence. The way it should be. But the flaw in her plan, she thought I wouldn't fight back. That I was just the career-focused outsider who'd never truly belong. She didn't realize every step she took was another nail in her coffin. I parked outside the lawyer's office, checking my phone. 5 missed calls from Margaret. 3 from James. Another text from Amanda. Mom's worried. She says you're acting weird. Don't forget, family comes first. Family comes first. I smiled at the irony as I stepped into the crisp afternoon air, evidence folder in hand. Margaret was about to learn what happens when you weaponize motherhood, and just how far I was willing to go to reclaim mine. The lawyer's office was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioning as we reviewed the evidence. Sarah Martinez, my attorney, spread the documents across her desk methodically. Medical records, video footage stills, photos of the tampered medications, and a transcript of Margaret's phone confession. This is more than enough for criminal charges, Sarah said, her expression grim. Tampering with prescription medications is a felony. We're talking potential jail time. I nodded, thinking about how Margaret's smug smile would fade when she realized the gravity of her actions. Another text buzzed through. James again. Mom's really upset. She says you're threatening her. What's going on? Your husband still doesn't know. Sarah asked, noting my expression. He's about to, I replied, checking the time. I've arranged a family meeting tonight. Everyone will be there. James, Margaret, Amanda, even my father-in-law Robert. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Are you sure you want to do it this way? They've all played their part in this, I said firmly. Margaret did the switching, but Amanda knew about it, and James chose to ignore every warning sign. They all need to face this together. By the time I arrived home, James was already there, pacing the living room. What's this about a family meeting? He demanded. Mom's freaking out, and Amanda says you're acting weird. I set my evidence folder on the coffee table. We'll discuss everything when everyone arrives. I've ordered dinner. Should be here in 20 minutes. James ran his hand through his hair, a nervous habit he shared with his mother. Liv, if this is about Amanda's pregnancy, it's about a lot more than that. I cut him off, my voice steady. Just wait. The doorbell rang at exactly 6. Margaret burst in first, her face flushed with artificial concern. Olivia, darling, we've been so worried. This behavior isn't like you at all. Amanda followed, one hand protectively over her stomach, while Robert brought up the rear, looking uncomfortable as usual. I gestured to the dining room where I'd set up my laptop. Please, everyone have a seat. There's something you need to see. Really, Olivia? Margaret started, if you're upset about Amanda's blessing. Play the video, I said to James, who stood near the laptop. He hesitated, then pressed play. The footage was crystal clear. Margaret entering my home office, carefully switching my medications, taking selfies with the fake pills. The audio picked up her running commentary perfectly. Amanda deserves this. Olivia's too career-focused. My real daughter should be first. The color drained from Margaret's face. Amanda's mouth fell open. Robert stared at his wife in horror. But it was James' reaction that hurt the most. The way his eyes widened in recognition, finally forced to acknowledge what he'd refused to see. Turn it off, Margaret demanded, her voice shrill. No, I said calmly. There's more. I placed the medical documents on the table. Dr. Roberts documented everything. The tampered medications, the failed treatment due to interference, the potential health risks of switching prescription drugs. You were spying on me. Margaret tried to sound outraged, but fear had crept into her voice. No, Margaret, I was protecting myself. After years of your sabotage, I knew to be careful. But this? I held up the video stills. This crossed a line. You interfered with medical treatment. You tampered with prescription medications. You potentially put my health at risk. Mom, Amanda's voice was small. You said those were just vitamins you were switching. I turned to my sister-in-law. You knew? Amanda's silence was answer enough. James stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. How could you? He asked his mother, his voice cracking. How could you do this to my wife? Margaret's facade finally cracked. I did it for Amanda. She deserves to be a mother first. Olivia's not even family. She's just some career woman Who what? I interrupted. Who loved your son. Who tried for years to be part of this family despite your constant undermining. Who wanted to give you grandchildren but had to watch you sabotage that dream. Robert spoke for the first time. Margaret, do you realize what you've done? This is criminal behavior. Actually, I said, pulling out one final document, it's worse than that. I slid the paper toward Margaret. This is a cease and desist letter from my lawyer. We have enough evidence for criminal charges, but I'm giving you a choice. The room fell silent as Margaret stared at the letter, her hands shaking. James moved to stand beside me, finally choosing a side after years of walking the fence. What kind of choice? Amanda asked, her hand still protectively over her stomach. I met Margaret's eyes across the table. You have 24 hours to decide. Either you seek counseling, admit your actions to the entire family, and stay completely out of my medical decisions, or we press charges. Your call. I met Margaret's eyes across the table. You have 24 hours to decide. Either you seek counseling, admit your actions to the entire family, and stay completely out of my medical decisions, or we press charges. Your call. The next 24 hours transformed our family completely. Margaret, faced with irrefutable evidence and the threat of criminal charges, crumbled. Her carefully constructed image of the perfect mother-in-law shattered, leaving behind a woman who had to confront the consequences of her actions. She chose counseling. The family meeting where she had to confess everything was brutal but necessary. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone gathered as Margaret explained how she tampered with my fertility medications, how she prioritized Amanda's pregnancy over my health, how years of manipulation had led to this moment. I was wrong, she admitted, her voice small and unfamiliar. I convinced myself I was protecting our family's legacy, but I was just being cruel. Amanda, despite her pregnancy, couldn't look at her mother. The revelation that she'd been complicit, even in a small way, had shaken her. After the meeting, she pulled me aside, tears in her eyes. "I never thought it would go this far," she whispered. "Mom said she was just giving me a fair chance. But I'm so sorry, Olivia. I should have told you." James took it the hardest, learning that his mother had deliberately harmed his wife's chances of having a child. It broke something in him. He spent hours in our backyard that evening, just sitting and processing everything. When he finally came inside, his eyes were red. "I failed you," he said, taking my hands in his. "I should have believed you, should have protected you. I was so caught up in keeping the peace that I couldn't see what was right in front of me." I squeezed his hands. We both needed this wake-up call. 3 months later, our lives had shifted dramatically. Margaret attended weekly counseling sessions, working through her issues with control and favoritism. Robert, finally stepping up after years of passive acceptance, made sure she kept every appointment. Amanda's pregnancy progressed, but our relationship changed too. The competition Margaret had created between us dissolved, replaced by a tentative friendship. She started asking for genuine advice about pregnancy, sharing her fears and hopes without her mother's influence. "I want my baby to have cousins," she told me one afternoon over coffee. "Real family, not this twisted version Mom created." As for my IVF journey, Dr. Roberts started me on a new treatment plan. This time, with proper medication and without interference, things were different. The first positive pregnancy test came 6 months after the confrontation. I told James first, of course. He cried, holding me close and whispering apologies and promises. Then we told Amanda, who hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Even Margaret, in her counseling-mandated boundaries, sent a simple text. "Congratulations, I'm truly happy for you both." The day I hit 12 weeks, we had another family gathering. Not for confrontation this time, but celebration. 2 pregnancies, 2 new lives growing, free from the weight of competition and manipulation. Looking around our healing family, I caught Margaret watching me. She aged years in these months, the consequence of facing her actions. But there was something different in her eyes now. Not the calculating look I'd known for so long, but something softer, more genuine. "I have something for you," she said quietly, handing me an envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten and tear-stained. An apology, not just for the medication tampering, but for every slight, every manipulation, every moment she'd made me feel less than. At the bottom was a promise, witnessed by her therapist, to respect our boundaries and seek help when her controlling urges surfaced. "I want to be part of their lives," she said, glancing at my stomach, "but I know I have to earn that right." James wrapped his arm around me, protective in a way he'd learned to be. "One day at a time, Mom," he said. "One day at a time." As I placed my hand over my growing bump, I realized that sometimes the greatest victories come not from destroying our enemies, but from transforming them. Margaret's attempt to sabotage my happiness had backfired, creating instead a stronger family, one built on truth and accountability rather than manipulation and favoritism. Amanda and I now share the same due date month. 2 cousins who will grow up together, free from the toxic competition that almost destroyed us. And Margaret? She's learning, slowly but surely, that family isn't about control or favoritism. It's about love, support, and sometimes the courage to face our own worst selves. James kissed my temple, his hand joining mine over our growing miracle. "You know what, Liv? Your strength didn't just give us a baby. It gave us all a second chance." Looking around at our healing family, I couldn't help but agree. Sometimes the best revenge isn't punishment, it's growth. And we were all finally growing together.